We're bringing you an extra WxYz this week because as we speak, the greatest armada of scientists and instrumentation ever assembled to study tornadoes is mobilized on the Great Plains as part of a project called Vortex 2. And two Penn State meteorologists are principal investigators for the experiment. Dr. Paul Markowski and Dr. Yvette Richardson left Penn State last week to spend a month and a half in the field as part of Vortex 2, hunting down the supercell thunderstorms that often produce tornadoes.
Vortex 2 stands for the Verification of the Origins of Rotation in Tornadoes experiment, and it's the second phase of a Vortex project which originally was held in 1994 and 1995.
That original Vortex project also operated on the Great Plains and documented the entire life cycle of a tornado for the first time ever.
One of the really curious findings from the last Vortex project was that storms routinely have rotation that extends to the ground. We used to think that storms either made tornadoes or they didn't make tornadoes, and the ones that didn't make tornadoes had no rotation at all at the ground. We instead found that basically all of these storms have rotation that extends to the ground, the primary difference being that the ones that have rotation that extends to the ground but don't make tornadoes, they tend to have colder downdrafts than the storms that make tornadoes. And that's a bit of an oddity as well, because most of us are familiar with cool downdrafts and thunderstorms.
So to some extent, one of the most important findings from the original Vortex project was that we knew a lot less about tornadoes than we thought going in.
We learned to our dismay that storms that produce tornadoes and those that don't look awfully similar, even when we sample them at high resolution from close range with instruments that are on trucks and aircraft, which are better than what you'd have every day in a National Weather Service setting.
Vortex 2 will use an unprecedented fleet of cutting-edge instruments to literally surround supercell thunderstorms which spawn the strongest tornadoes.
Vortex 2 includes a wide range of instruments, including multiple mobile Doppler radars, mobile mesonettes, which are cars that are instrumented on the top to measure winds, temperature, relative humidity, and pressure, mobile sounding bands that release balloons up into the storms, and camera teams who will be photographing all of the tornadoes and actually comparing that with damage the next day. And there are also some new instruments, we call them tornado pods, which are small instruments designed to be put out in front of the tornado in an array, hoping that they can capture something at least near the tornado.
The Vortex 2 scientists and support team, totaling about 100 people, including many students, will be living out of suitcases for the next 5 weeks as they roam the plains in search of tornadic thunderstorms.
Vortex 2 has no base, which is a change in how we're going to operate compared to the first experiment and many other field experiments where there is a base. We're totally nomadic, roaming between Texas and perhaps as far north as North Dakota, perhaps as far west as eastern Wyoming, eastern Colorado, maybe as far east as Iowa. We've even joked about Illinois. So pretty much any location where there are roads, not high population centers, those are on the table.
We'll have more on Vortex 2 tomorrow night on another edition of WxYz. Andrea will be back in a moment with a recap of the short-range forecast.